guys. Thanks for taking the time. This should be a fun conversation. So now let's hop in our DeLoreans and go back a couple months, back to 2020 and the year that shouldn't happen ever again. This is the icebreaker. This is the fun part. Kurt, you're closest to me on my shindig, so you're going to go first, man. How did it feel getting back into the control room on that first day after the world kind of shut down?
Yeah, man, the best word, I think, and it's probably the word that most people describe as weird. Just weird. Knowing that you're going into a building that's usually packed with people to put on a show, and this is the first time you're going back in, and it's going to be for nobody.
Right.
So just weird all around.
I'm sure we're going to hear that word a lot. Allan, you're up next, man. When you guys started the season, we'll get into it a little bit, but when you guys first came back to US Bank Stadium, what was it like?
I mean, everyone's going to say weird, but it was also exciting that you're back in the building. It's different. I mean, everyone went through it, but it's what we do. It's what we live for. So to be back in that room, and seeing people and preparing for whatever the season was going to be at that point, there was excitement to it, knowing that, hey, we're going to have a season, hopefully, and obviously we did, but it was exciting at the same time.
Right. All right, Carl, you can't say weird. That's off the board. What did you think for you?
Well, I'm going to go back and say it wasn't a weird year for us. We were given the gift of time because we had a brand new control room and video board, and usually everybody who either moves into a new facility or gets a new board and control room, they're always racing up against time. Their project's getting done right before the start of the season, and then boom, you have to learn everything. So we were given like a whole year of forgiveness with like empty stands and trying to learn our room. So it was a great year for us.
Awesome. Well, yeah, if you went back to the you that was on the SVG Venue Summit panel last year and the person you are now, I'm sure that person is so glad that you had this time to learn, right?
It was great, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Carl, we're going to stick with you because we're going to kind of go chronologically. MLS's back tournament came back to the bubble in Orlando. What was it? I believe the end of July, right? Is that kind of
beginning of July, early July, right? I think right around July 4th.
Right. Okay. So you guys were back first. Yeah. You kind of said you guys were poised to kind of set up the blueprint, the production blueprint for everyone else because you were the first one to get thrown in the water. Did you have a little bit of nerves and were you a little bit nervous since you were technically setting up that roadmap for everyone else?
Not so much nerves. I think it was more excitement that people are looking at what we're doing, but more so, there's all these. You're hearing about all these different types of productions. What are you doing? You're putting glass up in your control room. Are you having people spread out across multiple rooms? First and foremost, I wanted to keep it simple. We were going to have a really, really small crew, both for the in-venue and also we were running pre- and post-game shows, streaming out of our stadium. And I wanted to talk to all of our freelance staff and say, hey, I want you to work. Do you feel comfortable working? What is it going to take for you to come work in our venue before I start ripping apart my brand new room and the rest of the rooms in our building? What is it going to take? And so I took everybody's feedback and built out a plan and made sure everybody felt comfortable. Everybody had what they needed. And we kind of took notes after every single game, making it better and better and better so that as long as they felt comfortable, as long as I checked in, I had a really close relationship with our team medical. Like, hey, is this acceptable? Yeah, it is. Okay, I don't need to go out and do all the crazy things that maybe you're seeing in some of these other rooms.
Awesome. Okay, so what was that production plan? I know you guys did a couple of watch parties for some fans when it was safe enough to do so at Subaru Park. Take me into what you guys did for those fans and how it kind of was production-wise for your crew.
Yeah, so we had watch parties. We had, the state of Pennsylvania allowed us to have about 50 fans in the building. So that was great. We had some people in the building. First and foremost, the easiest thing to do was like, okay, we had a consistent crew. I kept the crew. So what I did is I had everybody kind of sign up for the block the whole entire tournament. So I wanted to make sure everybody was consistent. We weren't having like random people coming in game after game. So everybody signed up for the block, which everybody was happy to do. And I kept it really, really simple. I made sure that everybody had their same headset. They got a plastic bag with their own pens, some real simple stuff. Pens, highlighters. They had each their own little thing of hand sanitizer. They would unplug their headset and plug it into whatever station they were going. I gave them the script. They printed their own script, right? Things that, and some people were really, really extreme about it. And I gave them their own set of Clorox wipes where they'd wipe everything down. And some people were really cool about it. And so we kept it simple. Everybody felt comfortable and it was good.
Okay. Well, everyone got their own kind of thing to kind of keep their own bubbles safe and
baggies,
clean.
Yeah,
right. So hey, you guys give away, I guess they're kind of party favors if you want to think of it that way.
And then their season-long gift was union branded masks. So
okay,
we usually give them like a hoodie or a sweatshirt. They got a union branded mask that I made them wear all season long.
Terrific. Okay, awesome. Kurt, we'll go to you next because technically NBA was back maybe a few hours before the start of the MLB season. Scrimmage-wise, it still counts. You guys were still back technically before. So Carl was first. You guys are next. What was the setup like for those scrimmage games, and how did that help set the tone for the rest of the NBA bubble down in Orlando?
Yes, as you know, our control room was taken over by our RSN. Instead of them having to bring a truck in or do it from another remote studio, we converted our control room to allow them to come in and produce the local broadcast for those 3 scrimmage games, the 8 restart games, and then all the way through the playoffs that we went on that big run. And so it was a different situation than Carl because I wasn't working with my staff.
Right.
We were catering to someone else's staff and really kind of following protocols that the arena set down for us. And very, very strict that we, only so many bodies in the room at any given time. Anybody walking down the hallway, we wait until that one person finishes walking down the hallway before somebody else enters the hallway. Masks, face shields, goggles, Clorox, alcohol wipes, hand sanitizer at every station. And then, similar to what Carl said, bags for headsets, and we ended up buying a UV sanitizing cabinet and sticking them inside of that after every run. But on the technical side of it, we set up like it was going to be a home basketball game. So we put our RSN announcers down courtside, and we gave them their table and gave them monitors with a view of every camera. The radio announcers had their normal location as well. We put Jason Jackson up in the Bacardi Ocho studio, and he did his normal thing from that location. And what you saw at home on TV was what Fox pretty much normally looks like down here in South Florida.
Right. Awesome. Okay, Carl, we're going to go a little ping pong. We're going to go Carl, Kurt here. So when the productions ended up coming back to Subaru Park in August, what kind of changed? And did you reach out to anyone either in the MLS and colleagues that you had in MLS or someone that was in the Major League Baseball or any other league that were doing home style, non-bubble tradition production? That was a lot all in one, but
yeah. That's what I tell you. Not a lot changed because MLS has been doing remote productions for the last 25 years for road games. So our road games, we continued doing remote productions. A lot of, I believe, MLB teams actually reached out to our league office asking about the model because we've been doing it for such a long time and been doing it so successfully. So from a remote production, our announcers would still show up to our ABC affiliate, who is owned by Disney. So they had their whole other level of Disney COVID protocols. And then at the stadium, everybody kind of fell into tiered staff. The biggest challenge we had was we have a jib on the field. We typically have three cameras on the field, but MLS said, okay, you can only have 5 total people on the field. That being between an A1, between your cameras, between any roving engineers. So we had to get really tight with who actually is going to go on the field. And we ended up moving our low-mid camera. We ended up taking seats out of the stadium, out of the section behind us, so that we could put the low-mid in the stands, keep the jib and their jib tech on the field, keep an A1 on the field, and keep it handheld on the field. And they went through the same testing protocol as our team did. So they had to show up, and they were all freelance staff, so they're all showing up on their own time and getting tested so that they can come work. So that was one of the biggest changes. But as far as the remote productions go, I think that we stood out as maybe a leader in that space. And, you saw the NBA, you saw MLB without traveling. They're all doing these remote productions, whether it be in the bubble or from their home facility. And it was pretty turnkey for us.
Awesome. Okay, Allan, we'll get you in the conversation because I think we skipped 4 months in time? We're trying to keep it chronologically, like I mentioned. So I think it's around September, October. Training camps going, it's happening, and then the start of the season comes. what was it like being one of the last leagues back in action? Because was it a gift? Was it a curse? You can kind of learn from all these folks, but what was it like from your standpoint?
Yeah, it was a gift. We got a little bit more time, just dealing with the pandemic as a whole and what it was going to mean for us from a stadium standpoint. We did the same thing that all these guys talk about with the UV headsets, cleaning them, the little caddies for camera operators with cleaning. It just gave us, really just gave us more time. And we still didn't know what the season was going to look like probably until the weeks leading up to it. To be honest, even from NFL rules and regulations, what were coming down, it was always changing. Facility rules were always changing. So it was good to sit back a little bit and see how other teams are doing it. But at the same time, everything was just so fluid in our world and from rules to hit us that it gave us a little bit more time, but didn't really prepare us any more probably than some of these other guys, to be honest. And, there were some people I reached out to in Major League Baseball just from an audio standpoint, like, hey,
right.
Are you guys blaring your speakers at full volume with an empty stadium? What's the music taste? How'd you go about that? So it was a little bit of an advantage just to get some other people's perspective, even though football and baseball are very different from just the sport itself. But just to hear some of those technicalities, like I said, as far as audio in an empty arena stadium, what it's like.
Awesome. The way the NFL adapted, because some fans were allowed later on in the year, some stadiums didn't have any fans. You talked with our Brandon Costa, who's around here somewhere, about what you and your colleague Brian Harper did for fans that couldn't go to US Bank Stadium, but on their digital, either phone, laptop, second screen. What did you do to adapt and allow those digital fan activations to be something that fans relied on even when they couldn't go to the stadium?
I think it ultimately sped up the process of what we wanted to do probably in a couple of years from now, as far as a pregame show and bringing fans into the stadium and experience, what every fan was there. I think, like I said, we're probably a year or two out from pulling that off. But, we huddle together and figure out how to do that so that way we can show fans at home pregame warm-ups, any rituals that we're doing. The NFL put some rules again around us of when we had to have a cutoff point and really where that could go. But like I said, it sped up our process in a good way in some ways of seeing what we can do versus what we might not be able to do when we have fans back in the stadium and what hurdles we're going to have, and we're working through all those right now. So the good and bad, right? You get to learn a lot. It's your time to experiment with things because not many people can see it. But yeah, ultimately it was bringing the fans into the stadium as much as we can and still pull off all our traditions as well as we can. And then it carried over to our post-game show as well. We did a post-game show before the pandemic, and we just, brought in our technically what we did with that. And like I said, there were no really limitations in what from a technical standpoint because it wasn't tied up like we only have so many cameras. We can't sacrifice a camera to go here to do a post-game show or what it may be. But it just allowed us to play around a little bit more and experiment with things. So when we bring fans back, we can figure out what works and what doesn't.
Right. Okay. We're about 15 minutes in, but before I keep grilling these guys, I want to extend the invitation to our group here for our audience. You need to ask a question. If you want to ask the question to these three guys here, click on the ask button, the question mark with the bubble on the bottom. We'll get that answered and we'll kind of filter it in as we move forward. But Allan, before we go to the next question here, talk about your experience at the Super Bowl. You were able to go down to Tampa Bay and kind of play a role like you're used to doing in Minnesota, but do it somewhere in a warmer climate. What was the experience like? What was your role for the game? And I guess how did it differ because the NFL took the initiative to kind of put that event on? Was it any different from what you guys did in Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, well, my role was they expanded. They have an A show, they have a B show, and they expanded to a C show this year, which was heavily revolved around social media and things that happened on social media this year, and featuring some new tools that the NFL used since people weren't in stadiums, such as the celebration cam and things like that. So we had about 8 segments that we got to do throughout pregame and in-game. The experience was awesome. I think there was probably 15 to maybe 20 of us down at the Super Bowl from teams. So the league put an emphasis this year on trying to get people from teams down there instead of just relying on freelancers that don't work in the sport. So that was pretty cool that we got to work with a ton of our colleagues down there. And the experience was different, like everything. It was cool because I was in a stadium for the first time with fans, albeit it was whatever 25,000. I can't remember how many. The cardboard cutouts made it look a lot more full because pretty much every seat was full. But it was a great experience. It was weird because we couldn't really go anywhere. We went to the stadium only when you needed to be there. Any other time from that, you were in your hotel room, food delivered. You couldn't really mingle with people, to be honest, and that's what we do. When you see somebody you haven't seen in a while, you just want to talk to them and maybe go out to dinner, but you couldn't do that. And then honestly, there were some people from clubs who were working from home on the Super Bowl. I know LJ from the 49ers was at home. All the motion graphics people, for the most part, were home, the editors. So they did a really good job of, pulling the show off with people remote and some people there. But it was a great experience. Love to do it again, hopefully not in a pandemic. But a lot of talented people down there, and it was a good, very good crew.
Awesome. You mentioned colleagues and you mentioned LJ, but one funny story, I'm watching the game and the Chiefs are about to come out and I'm like, Kristian Pugh, is that you? She opened the door for the Chiefs and I had to laugh. I was like, that's crazy because I'm going nuts in the room. I'm like, they're like, why? I'm like, I know that person. So that's kind of cool. You mentioned colleagues working for the Super Bowl. But now let's go to 2021. We're back in the present time. And Kurt, we'll go to you because you actually have a game tonight against the Raptors. So thank you again for joining on short notice. But the question of the hour is the solutions that you guys use, whether it's remote, whether it's safety, whatnot, what carried over from 2020 into your current regular season now? You can start as the NBA representative on the call.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that everything evolved. It got even more complex and more detailed on our end. The thought processing of what happens if somebody in this room does contract the coronavirus. Does the whole room go out?
Right.
So in scheduling, I've created this, A, B, C, D, E, and O, F crew, if necessary, and tried to keep as many people apart from each other as possible. And taking my crew up into the numbers of 60 people to be able to think about, what happens because we play every other day. And we could wipe out A through D in 1 week. And then to our organization trying to always be on the forefront of, how do we get fans back in the building and adding in the COVID dogs. So every game now we have, dogs here stationed, and tonight is actually our first game where we're welcoming back 3,000 plus fans. 10 different locations these dogs are going to be placed. It takes about 4 seconds. The dog walks around you. If it sits, you're going home. If it stands and it greets you, you keep coming on in. So just things like that. Where do we give people a safe place to relax themselves?
Right.
So closing off public water fountains, you don't think about that. And then we're 3 or 4 games in and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, my crew has no access to water.
That's true. You don't have to think about that stuff. Continue. Sorry.
Then buying cases of water to have them living in the control room so that people can have them. But sorry, you can't drink it in here. We got to go find another place for you to drink this. So the things that don't have anything to do with what our actual job is, I would say, is the hardest part of all of this. And the ever evolving part of this, depending on who you ask and whose input you're getting at that point, what level you need to take it to. So ours continuously evolving. We started with 0 fans. We went to 150. We jumped to 500. We did a couple games with 1,500. And now we're at 3,000 tonight. And every step of that changes our procedures.
Right. You got to stay nimble, start trying to stay you're adapting to the scenarios because the more and more people, you mentioned it, the more possibility that God forbid a virus can kind of happen. So I guess the AAA is now an international airport with the dog. And one takeaway is you want to stay away from the letter Z because if you're getting close to the Z crew, that's not good. That's not good.
Yeah, I think that's one guy.
Okay, good. Well, okay, so he is the last line of defense. Based off what you were mentioning about water bottles, I spoke with Matthew Tate from the NBA, and they're doing a lot of their away broadcasts from Toyota Center, and they're talking about no one can bring in the food, so they're ordering food. They have to worry about bringing that food in, and sometimes the parking garage door is locked. So they're like, now they're a valet attendant. So you guys are wearing many different hats just to make sure the show keeps on going and keeps on progressing on. So stick taps to you guys. So Allan, I'll get to you after Carl. I haven't talked to Carl in a bit. Carl, your season starts in a couple months. April. Okay.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, will the productions stay the same? I know I sound like a broken record. Will they stay the same in April? And what production solutions are you going to bring from last year to the upcoming season?
For the most part, it will stay the same towards what we did towards the end of the year. So we started bringing a little bit more crew in. We started using some of our own cameras towards the end of the year. We still haven't completed some of our contractual obligations with our vendors. So they're actually going to all start coming back in as they were last February to come in and finish up just some more of their contractual game day support obligations for our first 3 games. So that will be nice to have them in the building. We're going to run full shows with our full entire crew. We're going to try to push the envelope as if it were, a full game day crew run, all of our elements, obviously not having some of the live fan interactive things that we used to do, but we're going to put every butt in the seat in our control room with whatever makes them feel comfortable. But to Kurt's point, everybody in our control room staff is going to know a secondary and third position. So if somebody's out, I'm jumping in, I'm producing and running clips at the same exact time. And, maybe someone's running expression during pregame, they're running Dreamcatcher during the game to do replay, which we did last year in a smaller crew where I doubled up on a position and some of my other guys have doubled up in some positions. So, and then we also put it out to our marketing staff. You want to get involved in some live production? Well, here's your opportunity. Right. Being that they were allowed in the building and they were part of some of our testing protocols. You want to come in and learn? Well, now you can get your opportunity to learn and get some hands-on experience. So we have second and third options available. But yeah, it's going to be exciting because we're going to be able to hopefully run our show the way we envision it this year. And then obviously with the whole HDR aspect, there's always room to improve and learn more and more and more about that. And we did last year, and we hope to be able to show that to more fans. And then I would say for all of us, we have a responsibility to be informative with all of our signage in our stadiums. And one thing that we learned last year is just talking to the small group of 2,000 fans that came out for the 4 games last year. And we learned that, all the signage that we have, all the new signage we have in our building and how informative we were, whether it be through our IPTV systems on the concourse or through some signages on our LED or on our video boards. People felt comfortable. People knew what they had to do, where to go, who to ask. It wasn't intruding, but it was informative. And I think that we have a responsibility to do that, and we'll probably continue to do that this year.
Okay. Organization-wise, it shows a lot of teamwork that everyone's kind of willing to learn those new roles. And plus, it's a resume builder for those folks. They can say, hey, I do marketing, but on the side, I also run Everts or EVS, and the like. Allan, you're up now, buddy. You're in the off season, a couple of weeks under your belt because Super Bowl ended. What worked and what didn't work? Pretty plain and simple.
That's the hardest question because you could say what didn't work, but at the end of the day, it kind of worked because we weren't ready for this. I don't think anybody was. So we're constantly every day just trying to figure out how to do things and get better at it. We invested in the product Easy Live to help us do remote virtual production. So for draft, that was a valuable tool for us, and then we started using that more and more. We're doing shows called Vikings at Home that go live out. Right now it's every other Thursday. So we just you learn the virtual world, or you try to learn it. You ask other resources of how do you make this happen, and I always will stand by my argument of saying hire people that are smarter than you, get your ego out of the way, because they're just going to be the one that helps you get to what you need, the ultimate goal. And what worked really well for us, to be honest, is sponsorship fulfillment. We really did not miss a beat there, and we were pretty high in the league from revenue retention from our partners. So we just found other ways to incorporate them into, like I said, whether it be a virtual show, the pre and post game show, just different content pieces. And we did a really good job with our sales team and partnerships team of all right, how do we keep this money coming in? And like I said, we were pretty high on retention in the league, so it worked. But like I said, going back to what didn't work well, it was kind of like there were things that were going to fail and you knew it because we just didn't know. And it was a learning experience every step of the way. And like I said, I swear by the rule of hire people who are smarter than you, and you'll be all right.
Okay, awesome. Mental note: if you ever run an organization or a production crew, hire people that are smarter than you. If you thought that question was hard, Allan, this is the deal breaker here. With the distribution of the vaccine and people getting vaccinated, what do you think fan levels will be out for the NFL come the fall? You are the fortune teller here.
Yeah. Well, look, we didn't have more than 250 fans at our game starting, I think, our third game of the year. I think we're seeing a trend here. I think New York and Brooklyn, they just allowed some fans in for basketball yesterday. It's going to get better somehow. Do I want to say we're going to be at a full stadium? Absolutely not, especially when we had zero, and Minnesota is one of those states that's going to be a slow rollout and let other people go first. But, you talk to people in Kansas City, Houston, Dallas, and again, I'm not a scientist, but you didn't see the massive outbreaks that I think probably people thought could occur in the beginning. So I'm optimistic to say I'm hopeful that we have 25,000 fans, and I would be really happy with that coming from zero last year. Really, I'd be happy with any fans, but I think, like you said, using my crystal ball and guessing, I'd be hopeful for that and optimistic. We're hopeful that one other sports team in Minnesota can get fans in their building right now, so it kind of lays the groundwork for us. We tried to do that for them, and our governor wasn't allowing it, which was understandable. So I'm optimistic. I think we'll have fans next year. Don't think it'll be a full stadium, but hopefully enough to impact, and we don't have to play our what I like to call our laugh track in stadium crowd noise, which is absolutely awful. So
you heard it here first. Laugh tracks are awful. Carl, apologies if I asked you this question. Any update on fans at Subaru Park for the season, or just kind of league wide?
Yeah, I think we're hopeful that we're going to have fans this year. I think we're trying to get 33%. Is that what I think we're trying to get approved? Eric, and don't go hold me into that or the Eagles, but I think we're supposed to have 33% is what we're hopeful for, which is in our building about a little over 6,000 fans in our 18,500 seat stadium. So we're hopeful for that. Again, we're starting in April, so we're hoping over this next month things change a little bit. I think right now we're approved for 15%. So, we still have a long ways to go. We do have an event in March 20th, Army-Navy College Soccer, which is only going to have 1,000 fans in the building. So a lot can change between March 20th and April 17th, April 24th, whenever we have our first home game in MLS. So, and then we have 2 Champions League games before that. So it could change day by day. I think we learned last year that one game we have no fans, and 4 days later we're told we can have 2,000 fans. So we're preparing the season as if we're going to be sold out and have 100% capacity, because we want to make sure we're not caught off guard, because one game could have X amount of fans, one game could have no fans, and then go back to fans and back and forth.
Right.
So we're going to be prepared regardless. We're excited to show, all of our new technology to all the fans. Let them see it.
Well, in pre-COVID times, 1,000 would be nothing, but now 1,000 is a freaking godsend. So 1,000 is like a lot nowadays. So that's good news. We have about 13 minutes left. This may be a layup question, but it deserves some time in the spotlight. But scale of 1 to 10, cloud-based and remote production tools, how critical were they this year? And I'm sure everyone will say 10, but Kurt, we'll start with you. The season wouldn't have happened. Nothing would have happened without remote production tools, correct?
For sure. And, everybody had their own use for them. While we were in the bubble, we did do a little bit of a second screen opportunity during or before the playoff game started. And we had one of our in-game producers kind of running a second screen through OBS software and adding in some of our normal in-arena overlays for free throws and scream and things like that, just to engage the fans and hopefully keep people interested in what it is we're doing. Because, the biggest deal is to get butts in the seats. And if we can't get butts in the seats, then how do we keep them engaged?
Right.
I think the remote part of it, or those tools really helped people to continue that in some way.
Okay. Carl, I'm assuming that the question's the same as you. You wouldn't be able to even do stuff for those watch parties without the remote productions, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Even if you look at the post-production side, right, like thinking about how we are working from home and how we needed to get access to our servers and getting access to all of our content, thinking differently, it was crucial to come up with a solution. And then, with our guys down in the bubble and us working back in Philly and transferring everything back and forth, crucial. But I think we could all agree that, in a creative area, we're hungry to get back in a somewhat of a room together to be able to collaborate and brainstorm together and not just jump on scheduled meetings all the time every time we have an idea. It was nice to just turn my head and talk to somebody and not have a scheduled 30-minute meeting with someone. So we're itching to get back.
Allan, I'm assuming the same thing is for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had a little flexibility where we were allowed to be in our studio sometimes. And then the next week the rule would change or we couldn't be in the studio. So obviously 100%, we sent little camera kits out to our talent for home to make a little bit of the video and audio a little bit better for TV shows that we still had to do. And those helped out big time, and just being able to get those feeds back. Yeah, I mean, there's no question, I like I said before, I talked about the revenue standpoint, and, if we don't have this stuff, that revenue doesn't happen. And then we're all worried, do we have jobs?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, hands down 10, and that probably saved a lot of our jobs, to be honest.
I was expecting you guys to say 11 or 15, but I'll take 10. 10's fine. 10 is fine. Last question for you guys, for the trio here. When you look back on the year that was, how do you think, let's try to be a little bit optimistic because I know there's a lot of downsides to the pandemic, but when you look back at productions in 2020, how do you think they shaped your experience as a production professional, or either sharpened skills to help when things go back to normal? Allan, you're on the hot seat first, man. What do you think? Yeah,
I mean, look, I'm really proud of the team that we have with the Vikings and what we were able to do. And that's at the end of the day, it's not one person, and that's the cliche thing, right? But it's true. Like when this pandemic hit, it was all of us figuring out, all right, what can we do? What can't we do? How do we do it? That's the ultimate thing. And when you can pull a full team together and most of us get on the same page of how things are going to work or try to work. And like I said, we had so many curveballs, everybody did, thrown at us left and right. But from our standpoint, from the NFL and the rules and everything like that, it was never, it never came to like, we can't do that. It was, well, what can we do and how do we make it work as a team? And again, it's very cliche to say, but you're only as good as your team, and that just made things work that much better. And going to next year, we learned so much stuff that we probably would have never even thought about. Maybe something as simple as like, hey, let's just interview a player through FaceTime. All right, cool.
Right.
We do that now. There's this unwritten rule sometimes where it's the off season and you try not to bother the players. Well, look, it's a FaceTime. They do it anyhow. So, we've been dipping in that a lot more. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It was, one, the team that came together and to figure out how to do it, probably just like anybody listening to this and companies and how are we going to make our business work. And then, like I said, we learned so much from this that we're still going to use some of these tools even when we're back in our studio going forward or stadium.
Right. Carl, you're up next, man. Oh no, we almost made the whole entire panel without someone being muted.
I clicked on myself and it changed the view of my screen right now, so
right.
It's a little bit different right now. I'd say, for us, to be able to listen and just have some flexibility. I think this is the year of trying new things, and we tried a lot of new things. We weren't afraid to fail because there was no other way to go. And to Allan's point, right? Like, there was always this unwritten rule where, like, the quality of what your image looked like. We always had this standard. It's like, we're recording Zoom calls and we're putting them in our edits and we're doing FaceTimes and everything under the sun was on the table. And it made us better because we had a lot of flexibility. Everybody had the gift of time being locked up in their places, and we had accessibility to anybody and everybody. And we figured out that we can continue a lot of these things that we've tried in 2020 and try them again in 2021 and make them part of our regular production plans. And so I think we learned a lot, and we're going to be better on the other end. And I'd say to my staff, just like Allan's staff, like to challenge them to think every single day and to not miss a beat and actually make themselves even busier than they were prior to pandemic. It was a credit to them keeping, when you hear all these jobs being lost, we were busier than ever. And we never had a doubt in our minds that we were going to, lose our step and not get our work done. And it was a credit to them just kind of making sure that we were keeping the ship afloat and actually excelling in that area.
Kurt, you can take us home. You're in the middle of it, so you're still kind of being molded as a production professional during this pandemic. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's the adaptability lessons. It's the willingness to never say no,
right?
And that just everyone who has risen during this time, whether it's the companies who have helped to support us or the people within the organizations to help find a resolution to what it is that we need to do. This has been a time where our industry, I think, has been reshaped forever. Some of it's going to be bad. Some of it's going to say you don't need as many people to do this anymore because look, they can do it from these other places. But some of it's going to be great because you could never do this production without renting a $15,000 truck. Well, now you just need a good internet connection.
Right.
And those things will allow us to really remold and reshape what it is that we do and take it to a whole nother level. And that's the part that I'm excited about from this.
Awesome. All right. Well, Kurt, thanks again for joining us because you have a game tonight. Good luck. Continue the great work this season.
Here's the rundown.
Look at no, I'm kidding. Allan, appreciate it, buddy. Always good catching up and enjoy the off season, even though you're bugging your players to do things. And Carl, good luck with the upcoming season. I'll be in the Philly area sometime soon. Hopefully we can wave from across the bridge or something and we can say hi.
We'll be able to have fans still. Come on down.
Hell yeah. Okay. Invitation accepted. Guys, really appreciate it. Good luck on your own respective paths and hope to see you sometime soon. All right.